Today, we are going to tackle an absolutely crucial topic for any reader, writer, or student of English literature. These are some must-know literary devices for all students. We're going to look at things such as irony, metaphors, allusion. I'll give you some examples from classic novels, and we're going to look at some quotes as evidence and learn how to analyze these quotes and connect them to the bigger themes within the stories. Good afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on where you are at. Today, we are going to look at some must-know literary devices for students and make sure they are as clear as a crystal blue sky for you. My name is Kevin. I'm a teacher and a writer. As always, I'm very excited about sharing all my best study tips with you. If you are into the material in this video or any of my videos, you're more than welcome to click the subscribe button. It means a great deal to me. Let us dive right in to our main course. That is our study tips for today. Number one is knowledge and understanding. We want to make sure that we understand clearly the definition of the most common literary devices. After that, I'm going to give you some examples of these literary devices that you will find in a handful of classic novels. We're going to use evidence analysis and connect these quotes to any of the larger themes or deeper meaning within the stories themselves. We have quite a big list here, and I'm just going to give you a select handful of what I feel are the most common ones that you are likely to meet if you're a high school or university student. These are the literary devices that are, again, most likely to turn up in your essay topics for your assignments. But for now, we'll just read through this big list here. We have irony, a few different kinds of irony that we will define together: verbal, dramatic, and situational. We also have allusions, metaphor, symbolism, paradox, personification, onomatopoeia, oxymoron, allegory, assonance, archetype, and juxtaposition. Again, we're just going to go and examine a few of these in detail today. So before we get our feet really wet, I think it's important that we define literary device for those of you that aren't absolutely clear about it or have any questions. Basically, a literary device is a feature of writing that adds and gives a deeper meaning and helps us to draw connections. It might be connections to the environment, to certain themes or characters. It could be connections to different countries or culture or history. There's a lot of things that we can look at in a broader context. Probably, I would have to say, the most common literary device of all is irony. Irony is all around us in our lives to this day. Um, it's speech or situations that contradict or go against our typical expectations. And by doing so, irony often creates satirical or humorous meaning. We have three kinds of irony, and the first is dramatic irony. And that's basically when a character is unaware of something really important that is happening to him or her within the story. Maybe someone's cheating against this on this person or conspiring and is coming up with a plan to defeat them in some way. The audience is aware, but that character is not. This happens a lot in Shakespeare. Situational irony deals with the environment, and it's an outcome of a situation that is contradicts or is opposite of our expectations. And that's kind of the overall theme of irony itself. We can take the environment here and be specific with situational irony. For example, if you have Alcoholics Anonymous or an AA meeting, and for some reason, the guys that are trying, all the men and women who are trying to stop drinking and not drink alcohol, they're meeting inside a bar. Um, that would be situational irony. Um, if the fire station somehow burns to the ground, or the old cat lady, the stereotypical old cat lady that we could have with her house filled with cats. If she's somehow allergic to all of her 50 cats that she has in the house and she's sneezing continually and petting them, but she loves them to death. um, yes, those are some examples of situational irony. And finally, we have verbal irony, and it is simply when a character says something that is the opposite of their intent or meaning, or it might be contrary or like go against a certain situation. One thing to clarify, and people ask me this quite often, is what is the difference between verbal irony and sarcasm? And while they're quite similar, the main difference is simply that sarcasm is mean. It's making fun of others or a situation, and it has that mean tone to it, whereas verbal irony does not. Otherwise, they are quite similar. Second, really huge literary device that you will often encounter is allusion. And allusion is referring or talking about any other kind of work outside of the story. It could be music, art, it could be another book, it could be a historical event, a real life person, a fictional person, any mention of anything else that's actually from culture or from other literature, music or art, that is an allusion. Often you'll see biblical allusions, and we'll get into those. A metaphor is a really, really big one. We have similes that are like or as, right? He's as brave or as a lion or quiet as a mouse. Those are similes when we use like or as. Metaphors are figures of speech. That means they're not literal or interpretations. So it's a trope comparing two unrelated things. The moon was a his belly was a pit. The factory is a prison. The child was her sunshine. Workers are pawns. They are just pieces that are being moved around in a chess game by a higher power. Those are all examples of metaphors. Another really, really important literary device you need to know is symbolism. Symbolism is using characters, events, images, or other things that indirectly represent a deeper meaning, idea, or theme. We have some examples here before us. The cross is a symbol of faith, a symbol of Christianity. Um, cameras, surveillance cameras may be a symbol of surveillance, of watching, and therefore control. Um, Wilted flowers, the dying flower that no longer holds its fragrant luster, may be symbols of love lost. You can see that in Martin Scorsese's famous Robert De Niro film Taxi Driver, where he sends the flowers to the girl, and I guess they all come back to him. He's sitting in his apartment. She rejects him, and he's sitting in the apartment with all surrounded by all the dying flowers, and very much symbolic of the love lost. Paradox is an interesting one. It's a statement that um, seems contradictive. Like it seems like it's not untrue, but if we look closer at it, it does hold some inherent truth. Some examples are: child is the father of the man. Um, Less is more. War is peace. Ignorance is bliss. So, how is ignorance bliss? How is not knowing something um, make you feel pleasure? Well, it just might be if you're unaware of something, if you don't have that knowledge, then maybe you don't have the stress or the worry that comes with it. As mentioned in our vocabulary list of literary devices, there are many, many more. And today we're just going to go and focus in on the top ones that you need to know. These are the books we're going to be looking at. They're definitely amazing reads. And if you're not just being forced to check them out for your homework and for school, I recommend reading them on your own time. An example of situational irony is how the ants are not loving parental kind of figures, but rather they are they're abusive. They're using rhetoric. They're controlling the housemaids and their freedom. They're stressing the importance of following and obeying men. Yet at the same time, they are ones that are forcing abusive laws upon the housemaids. And this is ironic in that sense because this is not how ants should be. There's great symbolism in The Handmaid's Tale if we look at the games of Scrabble and how words are used as a method of control and power. They are representative of the power that how the Gilead Society um, uses biblical verses and kind of twists them into their own laws that subjugate, put down, and instill fear within women. The game of Scrabble itself just shows how the power of words, and again, as used through the Bible or biblical verses used to represent faith, um, are abused in the name of power. And again, we have a lot of biblical allusions in the Bible, and once again, they're twisted into laws that are used to subjugate, put down women, to treat them cruelly. And things fall apart. We have great situational irony in that the arrival of colonialism and missionaries is initially looked upon as a benefit, something that will help society develop. Whereas in the case of history, fiction, and reality, we see that the invasion of the white man into the indigenous ways of the people um, is a force that separates and it destroys lives. Specifically in this novel as well, there are allusions. Um, the title itself and the epigraph are from W.B. Yeats' poem "The Second Coming." Um, and again, these allusions are basically meant to establish um, how the missionaries are looked upon as a saving grace, a force that will help to develop the land and the people. But in actuality, they are a catalyst for things to fall apart. In Kurt Vonnegut Jr.'s deliciously satirical Slaughterhouse-Five, we see the situational irony in how Billy Pilgrim is held. He's a prisoner of war. He's captured. He's locked underground. So he's in prison essentially. And because he's not up above ground, he misses being bombed. Which in the bombing of Dresden that occurred at the end of World War II, 25,000 lives were lost. There's also great irony in the fact that Billy doesn't look, think, or dress like any soldier at all, and yet he ends up surviving. In Malcolm Lowry's Under the Volcano, we can see a lot of allusions to Dante and Greek mythology throughout, and especially characters who are bent or determined to destroy themselves. And that's definitely the path that Jeffrey, the main protagonist of the novel, inevitably follows. And once again, there are a lot of things. There's a lot of symbolism. Symbolism within that novel can be seen in the image of the volcano itself, something that maybe is harmless and stagnant, but at the same time, there is great destructive power. There are great destructive powers bubbling over, building and bubbling over there. We can see the Day of the Dead festival that he participates as symbolism that displays the very thin line um, between life and death. If we look at Jeffrey's alcoholic tendencies, even his drinking, um, it is a symbol of him pushing away his friends and lovers, those who try to be close to him. It's also a symbol of his lack of discipline and his inability to face challenges. Wonderful. Now let's look at the professional, the only essay structure that your teacher will want to see in high school or university, and that is evidence, your quote, followed by analysis. Do it like this so that you don't submit a book report. Slaughterhouse 5, situational irony. He didn't look like a soldier at all. He looked like a filthy flamingo. Once again, within the life and death severity of war, Vonnegut employs situational irony by presenting Billy Pilgrim, who is completely unarmed and without his uniform, in a comical manner by making him so clearly out of place with his surroundings. We have the illusion, biblical illusion from Things Fall Apart. Here's the quote: "Locusts are descending," was gleefully, happily chanted everywhere, and men, women, and children, they're leaving their work and play, running into the open to see the unfamiliar sight. The strange natural occurrence in chapter 7 is a biblical reference to the plague of locusts that rain down upon Egypt in the book of Exodus. We can look at this allusion as ironic because the missionaries are initially viewed as a positive presence. Yet later in the book, after the destruction of the town of Obama, we have this quote from who is it? Obirika, who compares the white man to the locusts and says, in actuality, um, the first man that came down was a harbinger. He was sent to explore the terrain, and all along, yes, the white man was. They had ill intent, um, and ended up separating and destroying the people's villages and separating the people as well. Here we're looking at symbolism in The Handmaid's Tale. This quote comes from when Offred is immersed in her secret games of Scrabble with the commander. She's feeling the little pieces, the letters in her hand, and she says, "Hold the glossy counters with their smooth edges. Finger the letters. The feeling is voluptuous, sensual. This is freedom, and I blink of it." Atwood uses the language as a symbol of power, which is manipulated by the Gilead officials for political means and to subjugate women. Her secret meetings with the commander and the sensual pleasure Offred derives um, from the letters illustrate or enunciate her acknowledgement that those who shape rhetoric and control words, those who shape rhetoric can control others. Beautiful. We're moving right into our daily study exercise. If you can do some of these things regularly, I know you will see a huge improvement in your English speaking and writing proficiency. I'm going to follow the achievement charts based on the province where I live for high school, for elementary school and high school as well. First thing that we look at is knowledge and understanding. Get to know these literary devices. Make sure that if you think you know them, then define them in different words and give examples from either novels or even real life. Secondly, we're going to think in an analytical way. Find some examples from novels or real life. Don't skim and scan through an entire novel looking for literary devices. Just take a chapter, focus in on one particular chapter, and find any of the literary devices that we've talked about today. Metaphors, irony, allusions. Those are some big ones. Symbolism, something that represents something else. Finally, we're going to do thinking and into communication. I want you to practice writing a paragraph where you have your quote, your evidence, followed by your analysis, which describes what metaphor the author is using and how it connects, how it gives deeper meaning to the characters, to the themes of the novel, or to the story itself. I will repeat this one thing that you need to keep in mind if you are writing an essay, high school or university. Follow this structure: essay, evidence, analysis, evidence, analysis. Follow this format, or you may end up writing a book report instead of an essay. That wraps things up in a tidy little bow for us today. Yes, if you liked it at all, click that subscribe button, share. All of that is sweetness to me. Send your comments. I'll get back to you for sure. Literary devices are, they're for students, they're for readers, they're for writers, but they're for all of us because they're all around us in our lives. TV and movies, in daily conversations in cafes or at the workplace. Irony is great. Metaphors are great, and all of these devices really help us to give a deeper meaning, make broader connections, and really just evoke or stir up strong emotional responses in our readers and in our audience, no matter who they may be. I know we're going to meet again very soon. I'll keep trying to make these videos consistent and comprehensive, covering a broad spectrum of knowledge. Thank you so much for your support, guys. Have a good one.